Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Laura. I'm excited to go live. I'm just gonna make sure all of my social medias on point right now, okay? And make sure that I got everything where it needs to be while everybody is joining. I got my chats open. Awesome. Tell me how you're doing. I'm excited because I am able to do the CNA prep live with you and I want it to be something, okay? So I'm just gonna go on my social media and let people know, hey, this is where it's at. Tell me how you doing in the comments. Welcome, welcome. I hope that you're here to prep for the CNA test because we got some good questions um, that I believe is going to help you understand how the state is going to be coming at you with these questions. Okay, so I'm excited. Also, please expect that I want to see your answers and your responses in that comment section. Okay, I want to see it happening. So please do answer. And remember, this is a safe space. So if you get it wrong, and then as I'm talking about it and explaining it, correct your answer, put your correct answer in. It's a prep session. It's not meant that you're gonna get it all right. Remember that. It's not. So it's okay, it's all good. I'm just sharing this on social media right now while everybody is joining in and chiming in. I'm excited for y'all. I'm excited. I'm excited to provide this for y'all. So I want to make sure I can share. Let's see. Yes, I can. Look, girl, y'all, look, I be learning stuff all the time. I want to share this on my social media so we can get started. I hope that you're doing well. Look, we're starting the new year off hot and popping, okay? We are doing it and we're doing it together. We're on this journey together. And I'm excited that you're with me. Join me live. Okay. I'm excited about these questions too. That I've prepared for our time together. I'm also going to be giving some references so you can make sure that you can go back and study and refresh. Because if you find that you're like, dang it, I don't remember that, then I want you to go back and I'm going to do my best to tie in the textbooks. If you're using Hartman, I will be referring to that book quite a bit because it's one of my favorites. But I also will make sure that I'm just giving you an understanding of where to look for this information. Okay, that's what I want to do. I want you to be able to go back and review some of these things. We're also going to be going over some skills. Okay, some skill videos. So and skill, not skill videos. I apologize. Some skill questions because that's honestly where I see people get the most nervous. So, all right, I got it posted everywhere I need it to be. Thank you for your patience with that. Awesome. Yes, yes, yes. So, all right, while I get acquainted here. Very good. All right, so let's get started with our questions here. And what I'm gonna do actually is I actually prepared a PowerPoint for you, and I'm gonna link it because I was more excited that I could actually potentially show you this PowerPoint because look, me and my daughter she did so well with putting it together, but it doesn't look like I'm gonna be able to show that. So here is the link to the PowerPoint that I created. I'm gonna put that in the comment section. Questions. All right. That way you have that information and you can actually look at it while we're going through these questions together. How about that? We're gonna make it happen. Let's do it. We're gonna make it happen. Let's get that in there. Let's see if it'll allow me to. Yes, it will. Pew. All right, perfect. So that is the view only link And it's going to allow you to open up Canva and look at these questions while we are going through them together. So if you want to do that, if you're visual, please do. All right, so we're going to get started. I'm excited. All right. So our first question is going to be, I'm going to read them out and I want you to put your comments in the comment section. That's how we're going to go back and forth so you can have this information. All right. Our first question of the day is, let's see, one of your residents is not doing well, right? He received a very upsetting diagnosis from his doctor this morning. His daughter comes in to visit and asks you why. Why her father seems so sad today. What is your best response? So your first option is A. A is that we're going to tell the daughter what happened because she's family. B, suggest that the daughter discusses it with the resident. C, not answer in order to protect residents' privacy. Or D, inform the daughter to call the resident's doctor about his diagnosis. All right, what say you? What do you think? So are we gonna assume that we should say, hey, she's family? Maybe this is a daughter that's been there for a while, and you know the daughter very well. Should we go ahead and share what we know about this patient's care and the diagnosis that has just been given? Or B, should we suggest that the daughter discusses it with their loved one? Or C, not answer at all, which I'm not, that sounds a little awkward, right? Like, I don't know. Inform the resident to call the daughter to call the resident's doctor. All right, about the diagnosis. What do you think is the best answer? What do you think is the best answer? All right, what do you think? So let me just go into some of the rationale, because I know when you're friends, a lot of times when you're CNAs, you get very attached to good family members, right? And you feel comfortable and they've treated you well and all of this extra stuff that we can add on. One of the things we always teach our students here at Williams Career School of Excellence, it does not mean that the resident wants this person to know their business. It is what it is, right? It does not mean that. So this is important to understand, that the resident, even though the resident just got a new diagnosis, and one of our options in the question is, should we go ahead and tell the daughter that the resident, what happened in the resident's diagnosis? Remember that the resident may not want the daughter to know. So even though we feel like she should know, it doesn't mean that the resident wants them to know. I don't know if you don't, but some people have family members, regardless of how much we see them, they don't want them in their business. I'm just saying. I think almost every person in their life have this experience, right? We may not have somebody that we love and care about that we want them to know certain aspects of our care. So don't assume, all right? Never assume. And the reason why the state would be asking you a similar question is because they want to know, do you understand the components of HIPAA? And remember, HIPAA is about protecting private information, right? What if you talking to your bestie and you let them in on something that you have not even told your partner, your family, but because they feel, and I mean, this is more like something that's not going to cause you harm or someone else, right? We're not talking about something in that arena. Let's say it's just something else. I don't know. Hey, Courtney. What if that bestie told your family or your partner this information? That's like you're breaking a rule, right? You're breaking a code of some kind, right? So think about that with a resident. I'll reread the question since we have some new people joining us. It says, one of your residents is not doing well. He received a very upsetting diagnosis from his doctor. This morning, his daughter comes in to visit and asks you, the CNA, why her father seems so sad. What is the best response? And our answer options were: A, tell the daughter what happened since she is family; B, suggest that the daughter discuss it with the resident; or C, not answer in order to protect the resident's privacy; or D, inform the daughter to call the resident's doctor about his diagnosis. So the correct answer is going to be B. It's going to be B. Suggest that the daughter discuss it with the residents. And this is because of what I mentioned. We don't know if this resident wants the daughter to know that. And a lot of times the file, the residence chart, we require them to list who is privy to their personal information. And sometimes it's not who you expect, right? So don't assume ever, right? So the state would potentially ask a question like this because they want to know, do you understand that component of HIPAA? Just because they're family doesn't mean that they should have access to this resident's private information. So directing the daughter to the resident, then it leaves it up for the resident to disclose the health issue or diagnosis. Your hands are clean. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Your hands are now clean. All right. Number 2, you discover some chocolate candies in your resident's room. You know that the resident is a diabetic. He's on a diabetic diet, and he should not be eating candies. What should you do? A, take the candy out of the room. B, tell the resident that he is not allowed to have chocolate. C, leave the candy in the room and report it to the nurse. Or D, replace the candy with sugar-free chocolate. That's your option. So this is a person that is diabetic. We walk in, they have some good old chocolate. I love chocolate, so that's probably gonna be in my room. We see that this person has chocolate. We know that they're on a diabetic diet, which means they probably should not. They should not be eating something that has a lot of sugar because it will cause their blood glucose levels to rise. Should we just go up in there and take that chocolate? That's what the state would be asking. Should we just take it out of the resident's room? Or should we tell the resident, hey, Miss Smith, you ain't supposed to be eating that chocolate? Is that what we should do? Or should we leave the candy in the room and report it to the nurse? Or D, replace it with sugar-free? Now, I'm going to let you know right now, don't be touching nobody chocolate and putting sugar-free chocolate in their bowl, okay? That is not allowed. We have to honor residents' rights. They have a right to choose, y'all. Look, we all can get in the line of somebody telling us we should not be eating something and should be eating something better, right? Let's be honest. But that's my choice, right? Resident rights has to do with honor. When we just take it upon ourselves to just take something out of resident room or replace it without the permission of this resident, we are dishonoring them and we're treating them like they're children. And we're not taking care of and supporting children. We're supporting adults who are aging. That's what we're doing. We're providing assistance and support to a person who is a grown person and they're aging. So why would the state ask this question? It might seem simple, but I know a few people in my life, look, I can picture them right now, that would just take it out the room and replace it. I know a few CNAs in my world, y'all, and nurses, I'm just saying. And it's not right. Tell your nurse. The correct answer for this would be to leave it in the room and report it to the nurse. Let the nurse navigate it. And honestly, there are times where we will not do anything because the resident has a right to be informed and a right to choose whatever they want to, regardless if it is like impacting their health in a negative manner. They have a right to make that decision, right? It is what it is. For those who are just now joining me, I did put a link of the questions from Canva in the comment section. So if you want to click on that, you can actually review the questions as we're going through it together. I was so hoping I could just project it here. Next week, I'm gonna make sure I do that. But if you want to view it while we're going through it, just go ahead and click on that link and you should be able to access it that way. So our answer is leave the candy in the room, leave it in the room, and report it to the nurse. We don't replace it, we don't take it out. All right, question number 3. A resident's wife recently died. The resident is now staying in his room all the time. He's eating very little. The best response by the nurse aide is to what? A, remind the resident to be thankful for the years he shared with his wife. B, tell the resident that he needs to get out of his room at least once a day. C, understand the resident is grieving and give him chances to talk. Or D, avoid mentioning his wife when caring for him. What do you think? All right, Courtney is rolling it in. What do you think? All right. So A, I hope nobody put A, right? On the replay, don't put A. We're gonna ban you from the group. Don't put A. We should never be like not be sensitive to what's going on. If we know that this resident lost their wife, who are we to come up in there talking about be thankful, right? Like we wouldn't even want that. So we gonna eliminate A off the slate, right? B is somewhat good, but remember when you're taking the state exam, they're looking for the best response, okay? The best response. So yes, even your family or my family may say, hey, Laura, let's go take a walk because you're dealing with something that's not, you're sad, you're grieving, but is it the best response in this scenario? No, I think Courtney is onto it. It's gonna be C. Understand the resident is grieving and give them a chance to talk, right? Wouldn't it be better for you to be able to share like and hear about his wife, right? Why avoid talking about his wife, which is D. It says avoid mentioning his wife when caring for him. What is that going to do? Because if he's not eating, he's isolated himself to the room, he's thinking about his wife, right? Wouldn't it show him that we are in tune with his care if we go in and see that he's maybe with the lights off, he's in his room, he's sad, he's grieving, and we say, hey, Mr. Smith, I know this is hard. Would you like to talk to me about your wife? She is so beautiful. Tell me about her, right? What about that approach? Isn't that different? And that resident is going to build even more trust with you and want you to be a part of their care. And you're going to probably be able to get them to eat and eventually get them out of the room because you sat down and you listened. So very, very good, Courtney. You're on it. We're going to understand that he's grieving and we're going to give him chances to talk. Number 4, when moving a resident up in the bed who is able to move. So that's your key word. This resident is able to move with assistance. The nurse aide should, and this is number 4 if you're using the Canva PowerPoint, we could A, position self with knees straight and bent at the waist. That sounds weird just saying it, right? So this person, knees are straight, but they bent at the waist. That's interesting. B, use a gate or transfer belt to assist with repositioning. C, pull the resident up, holding onto one side. So when I read this question, y'all, all I see is this, we're telling the resident kind of like, that don't even sound right mechanically. Let's just be honest. It don't even sound right, right? D, bend resident's knees. D, bend resident's knees and ask the resident to push with his or her feet. All right, so now you got all the options. I'm gonna go back to the top of the question. It says, when I'm moving a resident up in bed who is able to move. So this resident has an able body, they're able to move. What would be the best way to move this person up in the bed? All right, so A is we're going to position them with their knees straight, which means their legs are out. and bent at the waist. I still can't visualize that. B, use a gate or transfer belt. The only reason why that's wrong is because the resident is laying in bed, right? If we're pulling someone up in bed, how are we going to use a transfer or gate belt? I wish I had a gate belt in my hand. I want to show you that, right? That's just, we use it, but not in this case. C, pull resident up, holding on to one side. The one reason why C is not the best answer is because of body mechanics, right? Body mechanics. This person can be pulling on something and now they didn't pull their back. Have you ever done that? I've done that, right? So you want to make sure that it's something that's keeping the body aligned and it's safe. So D is going to be your best answer. Bend the resident's knees. So they're going to bend at the knees and they're going to scoot up. Have you ever done that when you're in the bed? Like, are you told someone to scoot up, right? They're going to like push their feet against the bottom of the bed. So that is going to be your best response. D for number 4. Awesome. Very good. Number 5. Which of the following would affect a nurse aide status on the state nurse aide registry and also cause the nurse aide to become ineligible to work in a nursing home? So this question is the state's way of asking you, do you know what would disqualify you from working? It's a very simple question, right? So A, having been terminated from another facility or for repeated tardiness. B, missing a mandatory infection control in-service training program. C, failing to show up for work without calling to report the absence. Or D, having a finding for resident neglect. So why would a nurse aide be ineligible or be prevented or not allowed to work in a nursing home, aka long-term care facility? It wouldn't be tardiness, right? You could get written up for that, but that's not a state law, right? Missing a mandatory infection control meeting? No, right? You should have communicated to your supervisor that you won't be able to make it, hopefully. C, failing to show for work without calling your report to report your absence. That's a no call, no show. You're more than likely going to be terminated for that. It is what it is. But that is a facility and business policy. That is not a state policy. So that leaves us with D, having or finding like the nurse aide was found to have done been neglectful. Sorry, I'm like tongue tied. Neglectful in providing care to a resident. And what that means, neglect. And neglect is going to be in your first 3 chapters of your textbook. And I want to say actually chapter 1 more specifically, if you're using Hartman's. Neglect means that you intentionally did not provide care for a resident. That's what neglect means. You did not provide care for a resident intentionally. So I looked in Miss Smith's room. I knew she was on the floor and I kept walking. That's neglect, right? Or Miss Smith was soaking wet and I didn't feel like changing her, so I didn't. That's neglect. That has to do all with state law, right? This is an easy question that the state can ask a CNA on their state test because they want to know, do you know what's right and wrong? Right? What should and you shouldn't do? What is ethical? What is your ethics? What is your morals? Maybe morals will sound more familiar. Do you have morals when you work? Do you have good ethics? Do you know what neglect is? All right, number 6, Mr. Peterson often leaves the dining room table after only eating a few bites of food. One of your coworkers decides to put his wheelchair between the wall and the table so he stays and eats. This is an example of A, abandonment, B, physical abuse, C, defamation, or D, false imprisonment. So this resident goes to the dining room to eat lunch, dinner, breakfast, only eats a few bites, walks away. So that means they're not getting their nutritional needs, right? That's a valid concern for a CNA and a nurse and whoever else is responsible for care. Very valid. But how we respond is what the state would be testing us on. How we respond says everything about how we respect and honor and preserve dignity of the residents we're caring for. So we know they're not eating enough, right? Because they're walking away from the table. But if we or if the nurse aide in this scenario decides to take the wheelchair away, put it between the wall out of reach of this resident, and tell and forces, really is what's happening is like you're enforcing that he stays. Does this mean that it's abandonment? A, B, physical abuse, C, defamation, or D, false imprisonment. What do you think this is? This is going to be in chapter 2 for those that are using. This is going to be your first 3 chapters of a textbook to define those words. Is it abandonment? Abandonment is what it is. That means like I walked into Mrs. Smith's room and I never came back. I left the room and I didn't come back until the next day, or I didn't come back at all. I've abandoned the resident. Physical abuse is an option. I think that may be more of an obvious definition. Defamation is that we told a lie about this person's character. There's nothing in this question that talks about that, right? D, false imprisonment. What does it sound like to you? If you put D in the comment section, you are on it. You're correct. False imprisonment. We took something that would allow this resident to be mobile and functional freely at their own will. We took it away, which was a wheelchair, and we hid it and we put it out of reach to force them to do something that they didn't want to do. That's false imprisonment, right? So remember, your intentions could be good. These are really good, even life practical lessons when you become a CNA or as you continue to grow in this industry. Your intentions may be good because you're concerned about the intake of this resident. I get that. But this is an adult, right? We need to understand why this resident is only eating a few bites. Maybe the food nasty, y'all. Like, let's be honest. Come on. Maybe the food ain't good. I had a resident, their family would bring him some nice hamburgers and he would eat that like it was like, you know what I'm saying? So maybe it's the food, or maybe it's dentures. Maybe the resident's mouth is not a sore or something's going on. Or maybe the CNA forgot to put the dentures in, or maybe they need dentures. You know, it could be so many things, but to force them to be there, maybe it may not even solve the problem, first of all, because if he wants to go, he's like just sit there looking at the plate like, I ain't eating that, right? So you really didn't solve nothing anyway. So false imprisonment is huge. We don't want to force a resident to do anything. We want to understand why they're doing it so we can then implement something a lot better. Very good. Y'all doing awesome. All right, number 7. One example of assault might be A. So now we're talking about assault. Leaving the facility before your replacement arrives. B, telling a resident he may lie down only after he eats lunch. C, leaving an immobile resident in a locked chair, sorry. And D, not answering a resident's call light. All right, so the question is asking us, what is an example of an assault? Assault. Is it A, leaving the facility before your replacement arrives? Is it B, telling a resident he may lie down only after he eats? C, leaving an immobile resident in a locked chair? Or D, not answering a resident's call light? What is assault? Right? Think about assault. When you hear the word on the news, what what type of scenario typically is being played out in that. Some context clues here. It's going to be B, telling a resident he may lie down only after he eats lunch. We are physically telling this resident, you can't go nowhere until after you do what I want you to do. Right? Intentions might be good. And this is a little tricky because you're like, well, I didn't put my hand. That person didn't put their hands on the resident, but I'm physically preventing them. Like, you need to sit down. You need to lay here. You need to sit here until you eat. And you're not going to go nowhere until after. Right? Maybe that helps from context. Like, I'm physically restraining. I'm telling this person you can't go nowhere. Again, this is not the way we should operate. And this is great questions for the state to ask a CNA, because the goal of the Health and Human Services in your state is to ensure that we are adding CNAs and healthcare professionals that will take great care of their residents in the facility. So the more I can ask you questions like this, will tell me and inform me if you're going to be doing very well and doing the right thing that is required for your residents. And knowing the differences between an assault and neglect would be very important, right? Knowing that, because in our cultures, how we respond to those everyday situations looks different. Some people will pick up a phone and record. Some people are going to be like, I'm minding my business, right? If this was happening in the neighborhood. Some people may be like, look, this ain't got nothing to do with me. Some people may intervene. Everybody will have this internal different response because of how we grew up, our perception of whatever's going on. When you're in the healthcare industry, this should never be the case. Right? An assault is an assault. Neglect is neglect. There's no code. There's no scenario in which you will be okay with not reporting abuse or being abusive to a resident. Okay? Like, that's never going to be okay. So that's why the state would ask these type of questions. These are state questions, because we want to make sure you know what not to do, because your residents have a right to refuse what you're doing. Right? And the right to not do what you think they should do. And again, knowing why is always the important key to this puzzle. We want to know why, right? We want to know why. Very good. All right. This is another good question. Let's go to question 9, since we're on this vein of assault, battery, neglect. I want us to kind of stay in that headspace so that we can kind of determine the differences between the two. So if you get some of these questions on the state test, you're already ready for that. You're like, okay, yeah, we kind of talked about this. I understand what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. All right, number 9 says the term battery refers to A, a purposeful action meant to harm another. B, threatening a resident with physical harm. C, physically touching another person without their permission. Or D, a time when a caregiver doesn't follow her scope of practice. So what does battery mean? When you're in a scenario taking your state exam, you want to understand, what is this question asking me, right? So this is a very simple definition question. Do you know what battery is? Is it I did an intentional act of harm towards the resident, is what it's asking me. Like, if a person intentionally caused harm, that's A. B, threatening a resident with physical harm. So this is like verbally, this person, not me, this person is threatening the resident with physical harm. C, physically touching another person without their permission. The reason I like this question is because assault and battery seems so similar to me. It did to me. So I'm glad that I added this question for us to review today, because I had an issue with that, because I always saw assault like I just hit, that person just hit this person, right? But battery its definition is kind of in the same line. So make sure you go back. We're going to talk about the right answer, and that's going to clarify for the most part. But I want you to decipher the two differences because they are different and they can seem like they are actually the same. All right, let's see what the right answer is for this one. It is going to be C. All right, it's going to be C. Physically touching another person without their permission. Hey, Nurse T. Without their permission. I'm just waving at our Instagram people. How you been? Happy New Year. Physically touching another person without their permission. Battery. All right. So if you kind of got it mixed up because assault and battery, y'all, like it, I don't, and look, I'm from Louisiana. Assault and battery all look the same to me. I'm just saying. So I had to go back to the definition and I had to kind of like decipher that verbatim. So in this case, battery means to physically touch another person without their permission. I like this question because this is a healthcare issue. And honestly, CNAs, some of this is not your fault. You've been told, you got to get that resident out, get them to the dining room. It doesn't matter. They got to eat. So the pressure is put on you to make it happen. This resident may be verbally refusing, physically refusing you, pushing you away. They look agitated. And in your mind, we just told you to go do it no matter what. And I've seen CNAs over the years function like that. And now you're trying to physically get this person to go to where you need them to be. Even though it's eating, it's getting them out, it can be seen as battery, y'all. It is what it is. They have a right to refuse, right? We have to honor them. We have to like their dignity. And I always like to turn it on you because sometimes when you're in the job, you're doing your job and you turn off that humanity aspect and you don't think about the person that's receiving this behavior. But if it's me, you come up in my room and you physically moving me and I told you I didn't want to go, we're gonna have a problem. I'm just being honest. We're gonna have a hot problem. Okay. You have a right to refuse. This person has a right to refuse. It doesn't matter that they have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, dementia, any other mental health or cognitive impairment. We have to honor this person and build trust and rapport so that we can have more success. So when we say, hey, Mr. Smith, it's time to eat, they're going to remember your beautiful smile, how good you took care of them, how much you respected them. And they're going to say, okay. But you got to build it up. Don't be pulling nobody out of their bed, y'all. Let's not do that. And this is why this is a good question for the state to ask you, because we want to make sure that we are sending out people who will respect and honor and treat people right. But I want you, if you had trouble with this question, go back to the first 3 chapters of your textbook, define assault and define battery and put it in your own words. And then that's going to make this a lot simpler for you. All right, number 10. David is a resident who lives in a local nursing home. He recently has become upset with staffing. He's feeling that he may want to wait a very long time for someone to answer his call light. He feels like he has to wait very long. I said that a little weird. To answer his call light, so he isn't able to go to bed until late. He has spoken to the facility's director of nurses, but he is still unhappy with his care. The next step that David should take is, so let me just clarify this. So this resident is unhappy because he feels like he has to wait for a very, very long time for care. His call light is not being answered in a timely fashion. He's spoken to the DON about it, but he's still not happy with the results. So here are our options. A, does he submit a complaint to the Joint Commission? B, does he contact the volunteer ombudsman? C, does he refuse to pay for the services that he receives? Or D, file a complaint with the Department of Public Health? So this question would be asked if the state wants you to know what does these different entities or individuals do? So we're going to break this down together because this might not be one that you can really think about on your own. What does the Joint Commission do? This is important to know, right? What is their role? Do they regulate nursing homes or assisted livings or long-term care facilities? What is your ombudsman? This is going to be in chapters 1, I believe, chapters 1 in your textbook. Remember, your ombudsman is almost like a mediator. They come in on a quarterly basis. They're not a person that we would typically go to solve a problem like this. I mean, he can talk to the ombudsman, but we want something to move, right? C, what about refuse to pay for services, right? I mean, that might be something we would choose. Right? I ain't paying y'all. Y'all ain't doing nothing anyway, right? File a complaint with the Department of Public Health. So Joint Commission, you would have to know what they do. They're not even mentioned in our textbook. So that in itself kind of makes that question null and void. What about the volunteer ombudsman? We got to remember what the ombudsman do. Remember, they're not there for you. They're there for the resident. When they do their rounds, they're going to spend more time with the residents than they do with you because they want to know how they're doing. They're an advocate for the residents. So keep that in mind for them. D, when it talks about the Department of Public Health, that is like an infectious disease. Like it's more about that public health. It is what it sounds like. So it does not apply. So we can automatically eliminate A and D because it doesn't apply to this scenario. Now we have B and C. Contact the volunteer ombudsman or refuse to pay for services. So this resident wants some traction. What do you want to happen, right? And I wanted to look at this definition with you because I want to read the ombudsman a little bit better, just so you know his or her role, because you may most definitely come across this person. I have met our ombudsman when I was working in the field, and they're very nice people, but they did help us resolve some conflicts, not conflicts, but release resources and help us navigate resources for a resident who didn't have a family member. They didn't have children or anything like that. So the ombudsman is assigned by law, right, as a legal advocate for residents. And what they do is they visit facilities and they listen to residents. He or she decides what actions to take if there is problems. The ombudsman can help resolve conflicts, settle disputes concerning residents' health, safety, and welfare and rights. The ombudsman will gather information and try to resolve the problem on the resident's behalf. So they're advocate and may suggest ways to solve it. So in this case, your ombudsman would be the best answer. All right. So I like wonked that up at the beginning and I apologize, but your ombudsman would be the best response for this because they will help, they'll advocate on the behalf of your resident and be a mediator to help that resident resolve issues that are happening. All right, you're doing very well. Number 11, you are performing a bed bath for a resident who has just passed away. When you roll him on his side, you hear a sigh. This is due to what? All right. A buildup of saliva in the mouth. Air escaping the lungs is B. C, increased respiratory secretions. Or D, sign strokes breathing. And I may be butchering that for real. That sign strokes breathing is going to be in chapter 3, I believe, in your textbook for Hartman. All right. It's going to be chapter, let me see. Yes. Yep, 3. Because it's dealing with hospice, death, and dying. Okay. So we hear this sigh. Is this because of saliva? Is this because air is escaping the lungs? Is this because there's an increase of secretions? Honestly, A, B, C, all are almost dealing with the same organ system, right? You got saliva of the mouth, like I'm dealing with that, lungs, air. C, increased respiratory secretions. The only difference one is the sign strokes breathing, which again has to do with the lungs. Your answer is going to be sign strokes breathing. All right. I apologize. It's going to be B, air escaping the lungs. I totally apologize. I misspoke. Air escaping the lungs. I'm actually going to put that in our comments. So this person sighed, which makes sense. Like if I'm like, and I even did it. I don't know why I messed that up. It's like, right? Air escaping the lungs. I'm going to put that in there. B, air escaping the lungs. And this is when you heard a sigh when you turn the resident on their side. Awesome. We're going to do some skill questions now. So we're going to continue our Q&A next week. Honestly, we got through, I said about 12 questions, which we're going to add to that right now when we do our skill ones. But that's quite a bit to get you started and get your bells and whistles moving. This video will be left on my YouTube, so you can go back and listen to that. And remember that I'm going to be here again next Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time and 8 p.m. I think Eastern, which is North Carolina, South Carolina, all of my peeps in that arena. Okay, so I'll be back here and we're going to have some more questions. Let me know if this was helpful for you. And if there is a topic or a chapter that you're like, you know what, can you give us more questions in this area that'll help me prep for our next live? Send it to me because I want it to be helpful to you. That's the whole purpose of me doing this, is I want it to be helpful for you. All right, so our skills prep, the link for Canva, again, is in your comment section. Let me do this. I'm going to put that link back in the comment section of YouTube, just in case it got lost as we were answering questions. I'm going to put it there. So if you want to get access to the questions I reviewed, that's the link that you can for that. And you can use it as a study guide. All right. Our first skills prep question. So we're going to do maybe about, let's do about 4 of these. Okay. And I'll add, we'll start with skills next week. I'll flip it so we can have more of those questions. All right. So during the peri-care on a female mannequin skill. So that's what the skill is called, providing peri-care on a female mannequin. Does it require 6 towels, small towels, or 1 medium towel? And this is more of a Texas question. So I'll just preface that on that because the supplies per state may look slightly different. This is you're providing peri-care on a female mannequin, because peri-care, remember, this is when we're cleaning the important parts, private parts of a mannequin. So you need to know your supplies, right? Is what I told my students. You need to create flashcards or some type of way to test yourself, because the proctor will not do it. It is what it is. They won't do it for you. All right. So do we need 6 small towels and 1 medium towel? This is not all of the supplies, but this is where students get mixed up. It's how many towels do I need? Is this true or false? That I need 6 towels and 1 small towel, 1 medium towel for this skill? And the answer for this is true, right? For peri-care, you need 6 small towels and 1 medium towel. To add to that, you're going to need soap. You're going to need a basin. You're also going to need a chuck pad, or what we call a barrier pad, to put underneath the mannequin. You're going to need 2 of those barrier pads, right? So you want to know what your supplies are for your skills, and every one of your skills, right? You can't determine, you don't know how many and what skill you're going to get. You know how many. You're getting 5. Every state's 5. But you're going to learn more than the 5 because they're going to kind of do a lottery, okay? Number 2, ambulating a resident with a transfer gate belt or a gate belt. The nurse aide must walk with the person for 15 steps forward and 15 steps back. Is that true or false? 15 steps forward and 15 steps back. This is how tedious that test is, y'all. So if you're not already in the skills part of your programs, I know we have 2 programs going now in Texas, here in San Marcos. They're going to be starting their skills next week. So this is probably like, oh God, it's probably getting real. Like, oh, I don't know this yet. Look at those videos. Look at your skill videos. Start looking at your handbooks and prep for that, so you can at least be familiar for day one. So in the state of Texas, you have to walk that person a total of 10 steps. So 5 forward and 5 back. 5 forward and 5 back. And you don't run, y'all. You're not running a race, okay? Take your time. You want to make sure that the gait belt is secure. Ambulating gait belt, a resident with a gait belt is testable all throughout the U.S. So no matter what state you are in, this is a testable skill. Know how to put a gait belt on properly. You will learn that in your skills part of your program if you haven't already. Make sure that it's tight enough that I can get fingers through it, right? We don't want it loose, loosey-goosey, because in reality, if our resident shifts their weight, we want to be able to have control over that person's body. So this is a skill that is, again, testable in each state. So remember, practice how to place the gait belt on. Make sure it's not too tight. Make sure it's not too loose. And typically our rule of thumb is I can put, I can put a finger or two right underneath that belt. You can practice this at home with your family member, or you can put a belt on yourself. When I show my students, I'm typically doing it on myself. So I want you to put some time in on your skills, because you can do it, but it takes muscle memory. And the only way to be able to perform something under pressure when it is a physical skill is to practice it over and over and over. All right, number 3, when providing partial bed bath on a nurse aide student must ensure to give the resident a back rub with lotion. I'm already telling you yes. I know it's weird. You're going to be like giving them this back rub. I believe this is testable in North Carolina. I know it's testable, but I believe the back rub is a part of the bed bath. That's what I'm trying to say. So, yes. So one of your supplies for partial bed bath is going to be your lotion. And, you're going to give them a little, and look, don't be there. You're not the professional masseuse. Don't be there all day. Okay. But it's enough that the proctor knows, to give a little back rub. Okay. So, and you're doing it to a mannequin. So maybe that helps. Maybe that helps you make it feel better. Number 4, every nursing aide student will have to perform what the state calls a measurement skill. I know my students know this, boo, because we up in here from North Carolina to Texas. Yes, 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 yes. You're going to have to perform at least one measurement skill. This may be blood pressure, which is not electronic for the Carolinas, right? For Texas, we don't have to do blood pressure. Aren't you happy? Pulse, and then respirations. And then for South Carolina, another one that we don't have anymore is weighing, to weigh the person. We don't have to weigh anybody in Texas, but in Carolina, you do have to weigh a person. You can potentially have that selected for you to do. And it's going to be those old school scales. I call them the old school scales because we used to see them in the doctor's office, right? And you're going to learn that. You're going to learn that. All right. If you want me to show you, there's a great video on YouTube that I like to show my students. And when you're in Carolina, if you want that video, I'll link it in the comment section. And that'll actually show you how to read the lines, because that's usually what it is. Once you balance it out, it's like, okay, how is the lines worth 2 points, right? That's usually a question. And there's a good, I think a doctor that does a good job of explaining that on YouTube. I can link that, but you got to tell me you want it. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. So we don't have to weigh anybody in Texas. All right. You need to know how to do it, but it's not a testable skill. All right. This is also a testing question when it comes to measurement. When performing pulse as a measurement skill, the student must be within plus or minus 4 of the proctor. True or false? And what it means to be plus or minus 4, it means that if you're checking the pulse, and remember, our pulse is always on our thumb side. Remember that. Always thumb side. Okay? Never pinky. You ain't gonna feel nothing right there. Well, you're gonna feel something, but it ain't what you want. Always thumb side. And remember, you're never pressing too hard. I always tell my students that I get students that are so conscientious in a good way. You know, they don't want to hurt anyone, but you want to press in till you feel that bump against your fingertips, right? Always thumb side. Plus or minus 4 in Texas means that if you get 68 and I get 64 as the test proctor, you're going to still get it correct. Does that make sense? Right? So I'm 4 indifferent of yours, but we're within the normal range. Plus or minus 4. Right? If you get 64 and I get 68 as the test proctor, you're still going to get that answer. Okay? You're going to get it. Plus or minus 4. That's what it means. In your handbook for our South Carolina peeps, it tells you within what range you can be with your proctor. For our state of Texas peeps, it's plus or minus 4. Actually, I'm going to go ahead because I see some of PMT students here. Let me tell you what it is, because you know we need to be given all of this knowledge. Sometimes hearing it more than once and hearing it is so helpful. Let me pull that up for y'all because I want you to get it. Oh, I was right on the money. So, it's the same for South Carolina, North Carolina. You need to be plus or minus 4 too, right? So remember, for pulse, I'm going to put that in the chat box. You need to be plus, I'm just going to put plus sign 4. And this is for the Carolinas and Texas, plus or minus 4. That's for your pulse. For let's just give you let's give you the other one too while we're here. Why not? Since I'm in that arena. For respirations, it's the same for Texas too. Plus or minus 2. So that means when we're measuring the breathing rate, if I get 12 as the proctor and you get 10, you're gonna get it right. All right. If you get 12 and I get 14, you're going to get it right. So plus or minus 2. So I'm going to put that in our chat box here. You will need to be plus, let's see, or minus 2. All right, that's for your respirations. Plus or minus 2. Very narrow, right? So you want to make sure you practice hard on this. Get your babies, get your kids, your nephews, your aunties, all of them, all right? Something that's breathing, though. Teddy bears won't work for this skill. Get all that you need for this one. So plus or minus 4 for pulse, plus or minus 2 for blood pressure. Awesome. All right. We have done more. I actually prepared more questions than I have time. I really wanted to be on here 30 minutes, but I think we were having too much fun. And then Courtney, you were on it. Thank you for joining me live. For everybody who's going to watch this replay, thank you for joining. I hope this was helpful. I want to see, just like Courtney did, put your answers in. This is muscle memory. Put your answers in. Correct, wrong answers. Put them in. Do it like it's live every single time. All right. Engage yourself in the learning process. This is very, very good for you to do to prep for the state test. I will see you Thursday night at 7 p.m. Central, at 8 p.m. Eastern, in all of other time zones. Y'all gonna have to calculate that because that is not for me to do. Okay. But I would love to see you live. I've posted it on Instagram. Thank you for my Instagram peeps that are here. YouTube. I'm going to post this on Facebook and social media. Thank y'all for joining me. I hope this is helpful. This is going to allow you to be all you need to be. And you're going to shine on and you're going to shine always on this test. And please let me know when you win. Okay, let me know when you pass that. All right. Thank y'all so much for joining me. I'm going to wave bye to my Instagram people. And I'm going to wave bye to y'all. Bye.